Hello, we are Youngmin Lee and Hewan Jung from the School of Electrical Engineering at KAIST. Let me introduce our paper, SelMatch, Effectively Scaling of Dataset Distillation via Selection-Based Initialization and Pressure Updates by Trajectory Matching. This is the content of the presentation. Before explaining our paper, let me introduce the research field named Dataset Distillation. Training models with large datasets shows great performance but requires huge computation and memory cost. To address this problem, dataset reduction reduces the size of the training set with minimal performance loss. There are two main approaches, subset selection and dataset distillation. Subset selection method selects a subset of the most informative samples that best replace the full dataset. Instead, dataset distillation method directly synthesizes informative samples and shows remarkable performance compared to selection method, especially at extremely small scales. For example, reducing the size of cipher 10 to 100 images by distillation method achieves a test accuracy of 65.5%, which is significantly higher than the 36.4% test accuracy achieved by the selection method. Let me briefly explain one of the state-of-the-art dataset distillation method, the Matching Training Trajectory Algorithm, or MTT, because this is the baseline method for our approach. The MTT method learns a synthetic dataset by minimizing the distance between model parameters trained on the real dataset and those trained on the synthetic dataset. Now, I'm gonna discuss the motivation behind our work. Recent studies indicate that many dataset distillation methods lose effectiveness and can even underperform compared to random selection as IPC increase. IPC stands for the number of images per class. We found that this is because previous distillation methods primarily capture easy patterns rather than hard and complex patterns, which are important for a model's generalization ability, especially at large IPC scales. We discovered this by analyzing the MTT method using coverage. Coverage indicates the proportion of real samples that fall within a certain radius of synthetic samples in the feature space. Higher coverage means that the synthetic dataset captures more diverse features from the real dataset, which results in better generalization ability of the model. We observed that coverage with MTT does not effectively scale with IPC, especially for hard samples. Also, coverage with MTT keeps falling as distillation iterates. In contrast, SelMatch enhances coverage for both easy and hard groups, leading to improved test accuracy overall, especially for the hard group. Traditional dataset distillation method typically initialize synthetic dataset by randomly selecting samples from real dataset and update all samples during the distillation. This approach leads to the lack of hard and complex patterns, which are crucial for generalization ability of model. SelMatch deals with this problem by combining two key ideas: selection-based initialization, which includes hard and complex patterns in the synthetic dataset, and pressure updates, which help maintaining these complex patterns during the distillation process. Let me explain these two ideas in more detail. First one is selection-based initialization. Instead of random sampling, we initialize datasets by selecting real samples of optimized difficulty level. To do this, we develop sliding window algorithm. First, we sort training samples by pre-calculated difficulty score, such as forgetting score or C-score. Then, we select samples of 0 to R% window range from sorted training samples, where R is subset portion. Starting from this most difficult side, we slide window toward easier side by incrementing window starting point beta. Then, we find the best performing window subset and initialize the synthetic set with this subset. The performance is measured by the test accuracy of a model trained by each window. This is the result of sliding window algorithm with different subset sizes. The left side indicates more difficult window and the right side indicates easier window. We can find that difficulty of the subset significantly influences the generalization ability. Even 40% deviation in test accuracy can be observed. Another important observation is that the optimal difficulty level tends to increase as IPC increase, which aligns with the intuition that complex patterns are more important for models generalization at larger IPC. Second part is partial update. While complex patterns are included in the synthetic dataset, if we update all samples, we can lose complex patterns during the distillation. To deal with this problem, we introduce partial update strategy. After initializing synthetic dataset, we partition the set into two groups. D sub distill is the set that will be updated and composed of alpha percent relatively easy samples, where alpha is the hyperparameter indicating the distillation portion. D subselect, in contrast, is the set that will be fixed during the distillation and composed of 1 minus alpha percent relatively difficult samples. For distillation, we use the loss term considering entire synthetic set rather than considering only updated portion. This strategy encourages D sub distill to condense the knowledge not present in D subselect. After distillation completed and evaluating our synthetic set, we introduce combined augmentation strategy. Previous distillation methods typically employ DSA augmentation, which involves more complex techniques than simple augmentation, such as random cropping. However, applying DSA augmentation to our entire synthetic set may hurt performance since difficult samples are included in D subselect. Therefore, our combined augmentation strategy applies DSA augmentation only on D sub distill and applies simple augmentation on D subselect. Now, let me explain the experiment part. We compared our method with other selection baselines and distillation baselines on various dataset and subset ratios. Interesting observation is that Oracle window selection, which is to select best window from sliding window algorithm, outperforms almost all baselines, indicating that selecting subset with the appropriate difficulty level is important for scalable dataset reduction. By doing this, SelMatch established the new state-of-the-art performance in all settings with remarkable performance gain. Also, we conducted cross-architecture generalization experiment and observed that SelMatch generalized well on unseen architecture. Our method shows slightly low performance on small network like CombiNet, but this is because our distilled dataset contains more complex patterns. Next, we conducted evaluation study and observed that all components of SelMatch contribute to performance improvement. Merge refers to the method that separately selects a subset and distill a set, then simply merge the two sets. In contrast, SelMatch distills a set considering selected set, result in additional performance improvement. Also, we studied the impact of distillation portion alpha. We observed that optimal distillation portion decreased as IPC increased, which aligns with the intuition that more complex patterns are required for larger IPC. Additionally, we studied the impact of combined augmentation strategy. The result shows that our proposed augmentation strategy can effectively leverage the benefits of combining selected set and distilled set. We validate our method using TSNE visualization. In the visualization, small dots represent real samples, large circle markers represent distilled samples, and large X markers represent selected samples. We observe that selected samples are located closer to the decision boundary, indicating that the selected set contains more complex patterns than the distilled samples. Additionally, we plot the gradient norm of each set during network training. The gradient norm of the selected set is larger, which also indicates the selected set contains more complex patterns. In summary, we observed that the traditional dataset distillation method fails to incorporate rare and complex features, even with the increased IPC. To address this issue, we introduced selection-based initialization and partial update strategies to ensure that unique and rare features with desired difficulty level tailored to IPC scales are maintained in the distilled set, and thereby establish a new state-of-the-art performance across various dataset and subset ratios. Thank you for listening.